And are you familiar with all of the exhibits and affidavits associated with this case?
Yes.
So, moving on, could you describe a little bit what happened the night of October 15th?
Well, I arrived at the scene. Once I arrived there, my team was already there. We had the Concord County Fire there. It was a fire, so our first priority was to just maintain the fire.
And what happened next?
Well, my team did successfully control the fire, and once we had done that, we entered the building to see if there were any survivors, which unfortunately there were not.
And what did you and your officers do after that?
Well, we did find the victim's body lying on the kitchen floor.
And what did you find occurred as a result of the fire?
As a result of the fire, we were unable to take any fingerprints or footprints inside the house, and we could also not find the accelerant features.
So, the following day, how did you proceed with the investigation?
That night, kind of carrying over into the next morning, I had preliminary investigations with Sidney Alcott Walden, Jalen Whitman, and the defendant, Devin Emerson.
So, based on the evidence collected by Jalen Whitman, from the interview, what was some of the evidence that you gathered?
Based off of my interview?
Based off of your interview with Jalen Whitman.
So Jalen Whitman had been on a video chat with her husband to watch some kind of a baseball game or something, and you can see on the video chat in the background the clock that says that she was there between the hours about 6:55 and 10:15.
And because of this, what were you able to conclude?
We were able to exclude her from the suspect.
So you also conducted an interview of Devin Emerson. What did you discover based on this interview?
That Devin Emerson had last seen Aunt May at about 12:30 that afternoon on Sunday. Then had gone to some kind of barbecue or something with Jalen Whitman, and then had just gone home, fell asleep by about 8:30.
So as part of the investigation, you later received an autopsy report. What were your findings?
The autopsy report changed things a little bit. It changed from arson investigation, which we had originally been kind of focusing on, to a murder investigation. The autopsy report said that Aunt May had died not because of the fire, but because of blunt force trauma to the back of the head.
And based on this information, how did you proceed?
My team and I went back to the scene to continue our investigation with this new light. We searched again the kitchen, and we found a skillet on the floor, which we later were able to determine as the murder weapon.
And did you find anything else in the area surrounding Emerson Hall?
In the area surrounding Emerson Hall, we were able to pick up to lift some footprints from the path between the burn pile and the house, 6 full and or partial footprints.
And did you find anything significant regarding these footprints?
We were able to later match the footprints that we lifted, some of the footprints, with the prints that we had taken from the defendant, Devin Emerson's home.
So after this, did you conduct any more interviews?
Yes, I conducted an interview with Mel Herman.
And was Mel Herman on the Emerson homestead that evening?
Yes, about 6:55.
So based on Mel Herman's interview, what steps did you and your team take?
So Mel Herman had said that, based on Mel Herman's interview, I conducted a second interview with the defendant, Devin Emerson.
And did you conduct any more searches?
Yes. After conducting the second interview with Devin Emerson, we went to Devin Emerson's home and searched that.
Were there any changes between the first interview and the second interview, Devin Emerson?
With Devin Emerson?
Yes.
Yes, so originally, we learned that he had just gone straight home after the barbecue. But based off of Mel Herman's interview, I learned that he had, in fact, at least gone to see Aunt May before going home.
Right, and you mentioned that you went to search the Ralph Jr. house where Devin was staying.
Yes.
What exactly did you find there?
We found a wad of cash in a cupboard, as well as some loose cash on the coffee table. The wad of cash, interestingly enough, was the exact same amount of cash, down to the denominations, that we learned was missing from the church.
And did you find anything else?
Well, footprints, as like I had said, the prints from the shoe did match the prints.
And what did this allow you to conclude about Devin Emerson?
Based off of the money and the prints, Devin Emerson became our primary suspect.
And after he became your primary suspect, what steps did you and your team take for the investigation?
After that, we took his email records, we took his phone records, The phone records, so he has his cell phone, but he also has a disposable phone, kind of a pay-as-you-go phone, which in my personal experience has kind of been associated with criminal activity.
Your Honor, I am showing opposing counsel what has been previously marked as Exhibit 10. May I approach the witness?
Yes.
Could you please identify this document?
This is an email thread that we got from Devin Emerson's email.
And who is it between?
Of BW and Devin Emerson.
And could you read for the court a few of the numbers provided by BW to Devin Emerson between September 12th and October 12th?
Your Honor, this exhibit has not yet been admitted.
That's correct, so let's refrain from using the exhibit until we get it admitted into evidence.
Is this a fair and accurate copy?
Yes.
The prosecution moves to admit what has been previously marked as Exhibit 10 into evidence.
Any objections?
Yes, Your Honor, this document is hearsay. In fact, it is hearsay within hearsay.
A response?
This is actually not hearsay pursuant to Rule 801 D2E. This is an admission under party opponent and their co-conspirator.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Yes.
No foundation has been laid to suggest that B.D. Weiss was a co-conspirator of Devin Emerson.
What about the statement by Devin?
We would be fine if those were admitted as well.
I agree that we haven't gotten that foundation laid yet, that B.D. Weiss is a co-conspirator. I heard a double hearsay objection, but apparently they've dropped one of those hearsay objections, so that's waived. Your Honor, no, I'm sorry, that's waived. So the statements that Devin made in the emails are admitted, and if you are able to establish the foundation for the co-conspirator testimony at some point during this witness's testimony, feel free to re-offer the other statements, and we'll consider them at that time. But at this time, I'm going to keep those out, but Devin's statements come in.
Yes, Your Honor.
Unless there's anything else that you would like to talk about.
Well, not in these emails.
Okay.
May I proceed?
Yes.
Let the record reflect, I am showing opposing counsel what has been previously marked as Exhibit 11. May I approach the witness?
Yes.
Can you please identify this document?
These are the cell phone records of Devin Emerson.
And is this a fair and accurate copy?
Yes, it is.
The prosecution moves to admit what has been marked as Exhibit 11 into evidence.
Any objection?
Yes, Your Honor, this document is also hearsay.
And,
Response.
this is actually a regularly kept business record.
I have heard no foundation for that, so could you try to lay some of that foundation with this witness?
Yes. Did you, as part of your investigation, officers tend to subpoena phone companies to give them information for investigations such as these? Is that right?
Yes.
Your Honor, this is a leading question.
It's preliminary in nature, so I'll allow it. Go ahead.
So is, yes.
Yes, that is correct. We can just call up the cell phone service and ask for the records as a part of our investigation.
Therefore, would you consider it to be a regularly conducted business record as part of your investigation as a police officer?
Yes, I've gotten phone records from multiple services over my past experience.
The prosecution again moves to admit Exhibit 11 into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Exhibit 11 is admitted.
Could you please look at some of these numbers in the phone records? And could you just tell the court a little bit about what you see there?
About the numbers?
About the numbers and the times of the
All right,
calls.
well, there seems to be a call. Well, there was a call before my team arrived at the scene and a call placed for about 3 minutes almost immediately after I arrived at the scene.
Thank you. At this time, I have no further questions.
Do you want to cover that up?
Yes.
Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
Please.
Good morning, Chief Hawthorne. My name is Zoe Hopewell, and I just have a few questions to ask you about your testimony today.
Of course.
Now, you began your investigation in this case as an arson investigation.
That is correct, yes. We didn't have any reason to believe otherwise.
You weren't aware it was murder until the next day.
Until I received the autopsy report, no.
So, you weren't able to take some of the initial steps that you would typically take in a murder investigation.
That is correct. We didn't know it was a murder investigation. It was just arson at that time.
Such as immediately finding the murder weapon.
Such as that, correct.
In fact, there were several key pieces of evidence that you weren't able to locate until the next day.
Yeah.
Such as the bottle of lighter fluid found outside Jalen Whitman's home and the murder weapon, a frying pan.
Yes, we were not able to locate those until the next day, or at least determine their significance until the next day.
Now let's talk a little bit more about some of the evidence that you collected in this case. Now you found some cash in Devin Emerson's home.
We did, yes. We found a wad of cash in the cupboard and some loose cash on the coffee table.
So just to be clear, these are two separate pieces of evidence from two distinct locations within the residence.
Yes, like I said, on the coffee table, and then the wad was in the cupboard.
And these were placed in the same evidence bag.
They were.
Now, you found traces of accelerant on some of those bills.
That is correct.
But you cannot say which bills from which group of cash contained the accelerant since they were all placed together.
That is true. We cannot say with 100% certainty that.
Now let's talk a little bit more about this petroleum-based accelerant. You found a bottle of lighter fluid in Jalen Whitman's side yard.
That is correct, yeah. Pretty decent size, almost empty in her yard.
And this is a petroleum-based accelerant.
Yes, it is.
You also found traces of petroleum-based accelerant on many pieces of evidence that you found.
That is correct, yeah.
But you cannot conclusively say that these two came from the same source.
No, not 100% conclusive.
You can only say that they both have traces of a petroleum-based accelerant.
Yes.
There are many types of petroleum-based accelerants, aren't there?
There are.
These include gasoline, diesel fuel, kerosene, among others.
Among others, correct.
So it could have been any of those that you found traces of on the money.
It could have been.
And those can come from many different sources.
Yes.
Now, you also found some shoe print evidence. Let's talk a little bit about that. You say that you were able to match shoe prints found on the property to Devin Emerson's shoes.
Yes, that is correct. The shoe prints that we lifted did match the shoe prints that we took from his home.
Now, isn't it reasonable that the defendant's shoe prints would be found on a property that he lives on?
That is reasonable.
You have some expertise in shoe print analysis, don't you?
I do, yes. It was something I got trained in. I have a certificate.
And because of that, I'm sure you know that shoe prints aren't unique in the way that fingerprints are.
No. They're not unique. There are multiple pairs of the same shoe made by the company.
And different people can own the same pair of shoes.
That is true. Different people can own the same pair of shoes.
You also found another set of shoe prints that you weren't able to identify.
That is true, yes.
Because the casts you took of those shoe prints were lost.
The cleaning people, yes, unfortunately did discard some of them, but that was only after we had found a match between Devin Emerson and the prints we had lifted.
Now, you were able to exclude both Jalen Whitman and Sydney Alcott Walden from your investigation based on preliminary interviews, correct?
That is correct, among other things.
So, these were most likely not their shoe prints.
No, it's safe to say they were not.
Now, shoe prints don't last very long, do they?
No, they get scuffed to the dirt.
So, these shoe prints were likely made fairly recently.
Yes.
So, there was another person on the Emerson homestead that day or very soon before that you didn't investigate.
That is true. I mean, it's a walking path. There was a barbecue earlier that day, so I assume there was some decent amount of foot traffic from shoes that no, I did not. I was not able to obtain.
So you mentioned that barbecue. Jalen Whitman did have a barbecue earlier that day.
Yep, she did before the baseball game or something. Yeah.
And you didn't investigate any of the guests that attended that barbecue.
No.
All of whom were on the Emerson homestead on the day of the murder.
That is correct. They might have left footprints that I did not obtain.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Redirect.
No, Your Honor.
This way.